Well, after FBI Director Christopher Wray stated on camera for the first time that the origins of COVID are most likely from the lab in Wuhan, China, the Chinese Communist Party responded by accusing the U.S. of rehashing the lab leak theory to discredit China. Earlier today, China's foreign ministry spokesman pointed to the authoritative conclusion reached by the experts of the WHO-China joint mission that considers a lab origin extremely unlikely. Sounds like China wants the U.S. to change our motto to "In Who We Trust." But as we've been highlighting on this program, the WHO can't be trusted at all. Joining me now to discuss this and more is Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. He serves on 3 Senate committees, including the Committee on Homeland Security, Government Affairs. He's also the ranking member of the Permanent Subcommittee on Investigations. Senator Johnson, welcome back to Washington Watch.
Well, Tony, hope you're doing well.
I'm doing well. Hey, first, let me congratulate you on being a recipient of FRC's True Blue Award, which honors members of Congress for defending faith, family, and freedom with their votes during the second session of the 117th Congress. You've been consistent on that, and so I congratulate you and thank you for standing up for families.
I appreciate it. It's a real honor to receive that.
Now, this is the second day this week, Senator, that China has had to dismiss the lab leak theory. The first was responding to the Energy Department's analysis that the Wall Street Journal broke the news on. What's your take on these conclusions that Wuhan lab was the source?
Well, from my standpoint, it's been pretty obvious for quite some time that it probably leaked from a lab somewhere in China. And the fact that China's not been transparent, the fact that the WHO completely botched any kind of investigation. I think the WHO has been thoroughly captured by China. I think it's been obvious during the pandemic. But we need to get to the bottom of this. I'm working with Senator Paul. We're hoping to drum up bipartisan support for further investigations on the Senate side. I think the House will do that as well. It's important that we know exactly what happened so that we can prevent it from happening again. But the other aspect of this is what's being negotiated right now within the WHO. The Biden administration offering amendments and trying to do some kind of deal that what I've introduced, a piece of legislation to make sure that no matter what deal the administration does with the World Health Organization, that it is deemed a treaty and comes before the Senate for ratification.
Yeah, let's talk about that, Senator Johnson, because the WHO, if just to remind folks, refresh their memory, that after the virus began to spread, the WHO was kind of the cover for China. And in fact, China, as I mentioned earlier, making reference to this joint mission between WHO and China, suggesting that the lab leak theory was debunked. So the WHO has a very questionable background, especially what they were pushing during the pandemic. There's 2 tracks here. We've been talking about this on this program almost nonstop. You've got the accord which they're pursuing, but you made reference to these amendments that they're also putting forward that would radically change their operating structure. So tell us about your legislation, what it would require, and how it would protect America, the states of this country, from coming under the global power grab of the WHO.
Well, again, just to underscore the fact that the WHO failed miserably in its responsibilities during the pandemic, captured by China, covered up for China. And so now we're going to give them even more power over a future pandemic. And that's really what's being discussed right now. Give them pretty much unilateral authority to declare a pandemic. And then once they've done that declaration, what they're talking about is having, for example, the U.S. Contribute dollars to a new international organization without proportional voting control. They're talking about requiring the U.S. to give up 20% of any kind of pandemic supplies, whether it's medicines or whether it's PPE. So we don't know exactly what might be negotiated, but all I'm saying is pretty simple piece of legislation. I already have 33 Republican co-sponsors. I'm talking to Democrats about co-sponsoring as well. But it's just very simple that no matter what agreement the Biden administration reaches with the World Health Organization, that agreement will be deemed a treaty. And as such, a treaty has to come before the United States Senate to be ratified by 2/3 of our body. That will keep the administration far more honest, and I think it'll make it far less likely that we'll give up any of our sovereignty to an international organization as corrupt and ineffective as the World Health Organization.
Well, they're intentionally pursuing this route so that it's not declared a treaty, so that it does not have to go before the Senate. So this is a backstop. This catches them in and exposes what they're trying to do. But Senator, I got to step back for just a moment. I think anyone with half a brain that would look at how the WHO functioned during this pandemic that we know as the coronavirus. I mean, who in the world would want to give them more power based upon how they performed this last time?
A radical leftist like Joe Biden, people who are interested in a new world order, don't think that America is acceptable. They really want to turn our sovereignty over to a world organization.
So that's really what this is about. This is more about advancing this global world order than it is protecting people from infectious diseases and viruses.
I think it is. I mean, you don't reward an organization like the WHO by giving them more power. What you should do is, start all over again. I understand that it would be nice to have a really good World Health Organization that is not corrupt, does not get captured by China, that really could help effectively rein in epidemics or pandemics. But that's not what the WHO is. Just another bloated international organization run by a bunch of leftists kowtowing to the Chinese.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. This is not the organization to do that. I mean, again, going back and reviewing their track record in this pandemic, they were slow to respond, slow to inform the world of the spread of this. In fact, they provided cover for China for about 30 days as China got their story together. In the meantime, this spread around the world. So I just don't see in any scenario where we should give more authority to the WHO. I mean, this is far-reaching. In fact, as I've talked to some of the experts, and you may know better, but I cannot find a parallel where we would give this much power to an international organization to dictate what happens in our country.
I agree, which is why I've introduced this piece of legislation, and hopefully, I got my fingers crossed. I'm going to be working hard to try and get bipartisan support for it. It's one of the reasons we need to nail down what the origin was. We need to get the evidence. We need to have investigations not only on the House side but also from the Senate side. We need cooperation from our federal agencies, from our intelligence community. We need to get to the bottom of this. And I think once we do understand exactly what happened, hopefully then we will have the public support. And again, part of the thing that really needs to be fully exposed is how complicit was the World Health Organization in providing the cover for China. And as a result, how much did that lead to a wider pandemic?
Right. So, Senator Johnson, how can folks help you in your effort to ensure that the WHO is not given this power? What can they do to help?
Well, call up their members of Congress. We'll have a companion bill in the House, probably led by fellow Wisconsin House member Tom Tiffany. I think he'll be the sponsor in the House. But call up your member of Congress, your senator. In particular, call up Democrat senators, Democrat House members. If we could make this thing truly bipartisan, if there could be a lot of phone calls into Democrat offices, that would be the best way to make sure that this gets signed into law.
Final question for you, Senator, because we're almost out of time. But if this doesn't succeed, is the next step to just defund the WHO, since the House has a little more leverage when it comes to the budgeting?
That will certainly be one action we can take. We just need to get, and this is why I appreciate being on this program, we need to get this information out to the public so they understand exactly what the Biden administration is up to and how they just may be bargaining away our national sovereignty in certain areas.
Yeah, well, we appreciate you fighting that fight on Capitol Hill and always appreciate you coming on Washington Watch. Good to see you.
Stay well. God bless.